with introductions. I think there's a few people that have never been here before. So I'm Angie Martell, environmental planner at PPACG, one in the room.
I'm Kenzie Courtney. I'm the air quality outreach person here at PPACG.
And then we'll go online. If you could just introduce yourself and call on the next person to introduce, that'd be great.
Hey there, I'm Katie Helm, Conservation and Sustainability Manager with City of Mountain. I'll pass it to Jared.
This is Jared in the room, in the back with PPACG, and I'm just going to go ahead and take it over to Bob.
Hi, this is Bob Tomlinson. I'm the Chief Environmental Quality at Peterson Space Force Base, and I'll pass it to Caleb.
This is Caleb with Green Mountain Falls. Great to meet you all. I'll pass this over to Kevin.
Yeah, I'm Kevin Shrewsbury. I'm an environmental specialist at Colorado Springs Utilities. I'll pass to Christine.
Hi, I'm Christine Bierman. I'm a professor of geography and environmental studies at UCCS. And I came in just a moment ago, but I will pass to Eric unless he has already gone.
Hi, this is Eric Matson. I'm the Technical Services Program Manager for the Air Pollution Control Division. I'm here with Scott Lando, so I'll pass it to Scott.
Okay, we'll wrap back around to Scott. How about we'll pass that to Rick? We may be having some technical difficulties around the room, so let's go ahead and try Dina.
Hi. I cannot seem to unlock my camera, so can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Good. Dina Voitok, Two Roads Environmental, and glad to be here today. Hi to my old CDPHE friends, Rick and Scott and Eric.
Okay, how about Katie Broyles?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
We got you.
Okay. I think Scott's having some technical difficulties with the microphone and I can't chat. So just taking that opportunity while I'm on the mic here. Anyway, hi, I'm Katie Broyles. I'm an air quality meteorologist at APCD. And I will pass it to Matthew.
Hi, I'm assuming you're mentioning me, Sakota Matthew. I'm with CDPHE's Air Pollution Control Division, and I can unmute my mic, but for some reason my boss Rick Coffin cannot. So I just wanted to let you guys know that.
So this is Jared over at PPACG. If you're having problems, so just to kind of for some security measures and to avoid disruptions, everyone comes in with their mics and cameras disabled, and you'll probably get a notification that's saying such in Microsoft Teams when that happens. If you clear that notification, because then we promote everybody into what's called a presenter role, which enables your cameras and microphones. And so you should be able to, even if there's a notification that says you can't. Everyone in this room does have the ability to unmute themselves. But I will say, for whatever reason, because we work with CDOT quite a bit, they seem to have similar issues. But I think that's pretty much everyone who has been introduced. If we haven't, feel free to go ahead and unmute at this time.
Jared, are you able to unmute people? No, I mean, can you physically unmute? Okay. Dina, were you going to say something?
Yes, I was having those same problems. I can't get my camera to work, but I left the meeting like 3 times and came back in and somehow got my mic back. So just throwing that out there for other folks.
Great. So it looks like Scott and Rick are leaving right now, and we'll wait for them to come back in. We got to make sure Scott's microphone works because he'll be speaking to the group today. Looks like also Angel. Did you introduce yourself? Did I miss that?
No, you did not miss that. My name is Angel. I'm Mountain Metro Transit. I am filling in for Jacob Matson.
Thank you. And Aveline?
Hi there, Aveline Rodriguez, also with the Air Pollution Control Division.
And I see Rick and Scott came back in. Are you able to unmute at this point? I'll take that as a no.
Yeah, I just got a message from Rick. He's still unable to unmute himself.
Yeah, Scott is not able to unmute either.
Okay, I am being told that there's no other changes we can make on our end. It's on your end of your settings, where your microphone, choose your microphone settings and that sort of thing. We can try to give Rick and Scott a few minutes to try to work on their microphone settings. Hopefully unmute yourself. If that doesn't work, there's not a lot we can do today since we have Scott on the agenda. So I'll just give an intro real quick. So air quality, Scott's leaving. We'll get him to come back in, see if that works. I hope so. Sorry, everybody. So ozone season is coming up. Ozone season is basically the hotter, drier months where the sun creates more ozone, or helps to create more ozone. And with that, we call that ozone season. And PPAC, or not PPACG, I'm sorry, CDPHE puts out air quality alerts and air quality action days to try to get people aware of actions they can take on those really poor air quality days. And so we're going to have a discussion about kind of what all that is, the different air quality alerts that are available, what the air quality index tells us, and then hoping that this group can take that information and we can have a discussion about how we can educate the public more about ozone season and communicate actions they can take on during the ozone season. So really hitting hard with the air quality alerts, the outreach and education opportunity. So let's see. Did Scott come back in? Rick, are you able to do anything? Okay, Scott is changed into presenter mode, I am told.
And Rick is still unable to unmute himself.
Okay.
Hi, Angie. This is Katie
Kate.
Broyles. I'm in the office with Scott, and I think we're going to try to switch computers, and he'll use my computer to present. Does that work for you all?
That works for us. Can you make Katie a presenter? Okay, you're all set to do that.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you, Katie.
No problem.
Sorry, everyone. Okay, we'll just give a sec there for them to make the switcheroo.
Rick, this is Cheryl with PPACG. I'm taking over for Jared. I do see that you exited out and came back in. Are you able to turn your mic on?
Hey, yeah, now it's working for me.
Perfect.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, sorry about that. Not sure what's going on. I have a new laptop, so I'll blame it on that. But I'm Rick Coffin with the Planning and Policy Program in the Air Division at CDPHE.
Thanks, Rick. Glad it finally worked out. Sorry about that. We have a phone number 314-960. Is that that could be Scott, I'm not sure. Do you want to introduce yourself, or is that go ahead. Okay, we see you've unmuted, but I'm not hearing anything.
That's me, Jessica from Fort Carson. Sorry.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
Okay, we can jump into some other things on our agenda as we wait for Katie. Katie, if you can hear me, please interrupt at any point in time that oh, there you are. Go ahead.
Okay, Angie, we are pulling it up. So I think Scott should be ready here shortly.
Okay. Okay, as Katie and Scott work on this, I'm just gonna go into the item B on our discussion. And we'll go back to item A in just a sec. This should be really brief. So I just wanted to give the AQTC, although AQTC may be changing, we'll leave it to the group to decide, but an update. We took it to the board to the PPACG board regarding changing this group from a technical committee, which is, it has a certain definition of what obligations we have as a committee, and changing that to a work group, just to give this group more flexibility. We don't have to do minutes, don't have to have a committee chair, all that, and just be more flexible in a little bit in how we operate and get things done and make this more of a working group. So the board approved that. So the AQTC is now a working group. So that means that we need to go back and revisit our scope and purpose. So everyone here will have an input on, what you want to accomplish and what you want the meaning of the group to be. So we'll go back and visit that, and then we'll need to change our name. We're no longer the technical committee. We are today. We can be today, but because we're not a committee anymore, we'll change the name and consider taking out the word technical. See what the group thinks about that. So I'll just stop there. Any thoughts on changing to a work group? Any questions? Okay, pretty straightforward. In our next few meetings, we'll bring back that scope and purpose and talk more about it. So I'll go back over to Katie. We got a hand up from Katie.
You hear me?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
I'm so sorry, Scott.
That's okay. Technical glitches. That's part of the equation, right?
Yeah, we adapted.
All right. I really am sorry about that.
No worries. We'll let you have the floor.
Okay. Let me see if I can share here. Now, are you all seeing that? Can you see the title slide?
We can see the slide.
Fantastic. All right. We're rolling now. Hi, everybody. I did introduce myself earlier, but nobody could hear me. My name is Scott Landis, and I supervise the Meteorology and Prescribed Fire Unit here at the division. And I'm going to kind of do an overview here of Pikes Peak ozone, talk a little bit about, climatology trends, and also how we get the word out here at the division when we believe ozone is going to reach levels that are going to impact public health. So let's talk specifically about the Pikes Peak region. So in general, there's three things that can cause an ozone exceedance here. The first one is your general pollution, anthropogenic sources, and we're talking about mobile sources, emissions coming from motor vehicles, also in heavy industry, oil and gas production. Those can also contribute to ozone production. And the one thing we do see a lot of when we have high ozone here in the Pikes Peak region, when it's not a stratospheric intrusion, when it's not enhanced by wildfire smoke. If we don't see those two things and we see high ozone, 99 times out of 100, don't quote me on that stat, but pretty darn close, the wind is coming from the north, okay? And it's not usually a very light wind. It's coming from Denver. And what we need generally is kind of stagnation conditions up towards Denver, generally higher ozone days, and then a northerly push across Denver that brings it up and over the Palmer Divide into the Pikes Peak region. Those are the days when we have high ozone here where we can't blame it on an intrusion and we can't blame it on wildfire smoke enhancement. So I'll talk a little bit more about those anthropogenic kind of days in just a moment. Stratospheric intrusions, this is the transport of good ozone up in the stratosphere down to the surface of the Earth. Those that might be a little bit unfamiliar with intrusions, obviously we have a lot of ozone way up in the atmosphere where it does good things, blocks out ultraviolet radiation that could cause a lot of harm. However, it acts like ozone in other respects in that when it comes down to the surface, it's unhealthy to breathe. So these big, strong storm systems that we have generally in the spring and into the early summertime, we will see at times that really in ozone-rich air from way up in the stratosphere being transported down to the surface. And of course, wildfire smoke. Now, wildfire smoke does not automatically mean we're going to have high ozone. In fact, smoke has a very complex relationship with ozone. If you have too much of smoke, so think about a fire just to the west of Colorado Springs, the smoke is not necessarily getting down to the surface, but it's really obscuring the sunshine. Okay, so the smoke is not having those kind of surface impacts, but it is decreasing the amount of incoming ultraviolet radiation. That can actually decrease ozone formation. But a lot of times, and especially when we're talking about long range transport with wildfire smoke. So think of a fire that occurred in California, Montana, even Canada, that's been up in the atmosphere for 2 or 3 days. It's been diluted, it's been aged, and when it does reach the surface, it can really enhance ozone in a big way via that complex chemistry. And of course, these things don't all live in their own silos. They can interact. We've had plenty of times where we've had stratospheric intrusions move on through, but along with pulling down stratospheric ozone, it's pulled down wildfire smoke in some occasions, and also sometimes some pollution from aloft that's been transported from other states and even other countries. So it's a combination of factors many times, and makes it very difficult to really discern exactly what is causing the high ozone. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the climatology and the trends that we're seeing here in the Pikes Peak region. I pulled all this data right from the EPA's website, and you can see there is definitely an ozone season, and it shouldn't be too surprising. It comes at generally the hottest time of the year. Ozone season here in the Pikes Peak region peaks in late July into early August, and then it winds down. Now, you do see that we have had some exceedances as early as April. Those are generally stratospheric intrusions. We get a lot of spring storm systems, a lot of ozone aloft, and at times that will be transported down to the surface. So those early month exceedances are usually typified by stratospheric intrusions. As we get into the summertime months, we add into the mix those anthropogenic sources and also wildfire smoke. Now, pretty surprising here is kind of the number of days that we've had exceedances over the past 25 years or so. So if you look to the left of that chart, there are some fluctuations from year to year, but really you see the big fluctuations starting in 2014. And the common thread on those, the active years that we've had exceedances here in the Pikes Peak area recently, they were either big wildfire smoke years or there were a lot of stratospheric intrusions. So some of these numbers here are actually kind of encouraging. We saw more in the way of 5 to 15 exceedances per year in the early part of the century. And now, if we're not having a big wildfire smoke year or a big stratospheric intrusion year, we only see a handful of exceedances, which is certainly an encouraging thing. So let's look a little more recently here at 2022 to 2024, and you can see 2022 and 2023 were relatively quiet at both our Air Force Academy monitor and the Manitou Springs monitor. We had 2 exceedance days in 2022 and 1 in 2023, and 2 of those 3 were due to stratospheric intrusions. Those May events, May 12th and May 22nd, were both intrusions. Of course, we all know last year was a terrible year. We had exceedances starting in April and going all the way into the early part of August. There were a combination of things going on in 2024, but certainly a lot of wildfire smoke. That was a common thread in 2024. So the suspected causes and influences of the 16 exceedances over the past 3 years, 8 of them were wildfire smoke, 4 were intrusions, and 4 were neither of those. We believe those are just due to anthropogenic sources. Let's start with wildfire smoke. So this is last summer, July 23rd, 2024. And really, we didn't see a heck of a lot of smoke around in all of eastern Colorado for June into early July. But then things really changed late part of July into August. A lot of fires across the Pacific Northwest and Canada. And we had a big ridge of high pressure set up shop over the southwestern U.S., with clockwise flow around that ridge. A lot of that smoke was transported northeasterly and then southerly right into eastern Colorado. And that's when we started seeing a lot of our smoky days. This is a smoke console that was put together by Patrick Reddy with in conjunction with the University of Wisconsin. And this shows how much of PM 2.5 could be contributed to wildfire smoke. All right, so this was the same day of that satellite image I just showed you, and you can see that almost all of the PM 2.5 that was really ongoing across the Front Range region was due to smoke. So we had PM 2.5 concentrations above 35.5, that puts it into the unhealthy for sensitive groups category. So not only were we dealing with high ozone, we were also dealing with high particulates as that wildfire smoke moved into a hot and dry air mass. And that's the lovely view from the top of Pikes Peak on the morning of July 23rd. That goes along with the satellite image I just showed and those PM 2.5 concentrations from the previous slide. And that is not fog. That is wildfire smoke as we got the day started on July 23rd. Now, this is minute data for our two Pikes Peak monitors, one at the Air Force Academy, one at Manitou Springs. And the takeaway from these two is how ozone kind of behaves in a very smoky kind of environment. You can see from where the line kind of peaks and then just stays at that same level from, say, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., we had concentrations of 75, 80, going up to near 100 parts per billion. It was just high and stayed high all day long, pretty flat. And we're talking about, unhealthy air quality concentrations for the entire day. And we do see this a lot during heavy wildfire smoke days. Ozone will be high in the morning and it will just stay there all day long. Completely different story when we're talking about stratospheric intrusions. So this lovely, colorful graphic that you're looking at right here is Topaz LiDAR data. So this is in Boulder, and what it does is it measures the amount of ozone in the air up through a column of air well up into the atmosphere. The darker colors and the grays, that represents ozone-rich air. At the bottom of this graphic is time series. So basically to the left, morning hours, and then going through the afternoon into the evening hours. And you can see, if you want to focus on the left side of this graphic, at about 10:30 a.m., you can see that there was a big lobe of high ozone overhead at about 6,000 meters above sea level. And then look as you go down towards the bottom axis. That is a stratospheric intrusion. That is ozone that is well up in the atmosphere and has been brought down by atmospheric dynamics right to the Earth's surface. So at 10:30 in the morning that day on May 12th, 2022, we saw some really high ozone concentrations. Even though this LiDAR is in Boulder, the entire Front Range was impacted, including the Pikes Peak region. So here's kind of what we look at in the upper levels of the atmosphere for a stratospheric intrusion. So the very thin black lines, those denote pressure gradient. Okay, so when we see something like this where there's a trough in the upper levels of the atmosphere, that generally means instability, often an upper air storm system. And when you see that accompanied by very high winds, which is the blue shading on this, you have those two things together and you have the potential for a stratospheric intrusion. During the morning of May 12th, 2022, we had what we call a jet streak move right over the Pikes Peak area. And this is another satellite image that we look at during intrusions. The dark reds denote dry air at the mid-levels of the atmosphere. So if you could see dry air at the mid-levels of the atmosphere at any time of the year. During the summer, big dry air mass overhead, it's dry throughout the column. But when a storm system moves on through and you see this very dry air at the mid-levels of the atmosphere, that also shows that there's the potential that some very dry air at the highest levels of the atmosphere is being pulled down to the Earth's surface. And you can see on this map right above Colorado Springs, very dark reds, right at the time we started seeing spikes in ozone. So here's the minute data from that day. And notice how much different this is than from what you saw with the smoke day, all right? You see ozone moving along during the morning hours and then a very abrupt increase. And when I say increase, I'm talking about 30 parts per billion in a matter of 15 to 20 minutes. So things can go from very moderate levels of ozone to even unhealthy levels of ozone very, very rapidly. And I can say this for the meteorologist group, here, that stratospheric intrusions are probably the most difficult thing that we have to forecast. I'm pretty thankful it only happens for a couple of months a year because it's incredibly challenging. You can have a big storm system move on through, lots of ozone. The dynamics are there to bring the ozone down to the surface and nothing happens. Why is that? Well, the ozone only got down to a couple 100 feet above the surface. So maybe the ozone was at 60 parts per billion at the surface of the Earth. You go up a couple 100 feet in the atmosphere and it's 120 parts per billion. That happens. And it's the most challenging thing is to say, is that last gasp ozone going to make it down to the surface? Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, but very challenging indeed. And this is an anthropogenic kind of scenario I want to show you. So this is from last July. This was before the wildfire smoke arrived. And we just kind of had a stagnant hot day here throughout eastern Colorado. Now to the north is Denver, and those numbers represent the concentration of PM 2.5. Now, we're not talking about unhealthy levels of particulates here, but you will notice in Denver, you're seeing hourly concentrations of 8, 9, 10. That shows me that it's not a pristine, clean day in Denver. Okay, there is some particulates building up. It's probably stagnant out there. Visibility is probably not very good. And that's all building up in Denver, probably primed to be a high ozone day for the foothills to the west of Denver. However, what we have to look for as well is that northerly push that could bring it down to the Pikes Peak region. So this is at 6 o'clock in the morning on July 9th, 2024. Let's move to 10 o'clock. Focus on those red circled wind bars. They're pointing north. So what that means is the winds are coming out of the north from Denver, and we're seeing 10, 15 knot winds all the way down at the U.S. Air Force Academy. That is telling me that the air mass in Denver has been able to get up and over the Palmer Divide into the Pikes Peak region. If we're not going to see thunderstorms here in the Colorado Springs area this afternoon, there is a strong likelihood that we could have an ozone exceedance. And we didn't have thunderstorms on this particular day. And you can see by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Academy was at 76, Manitou Springs was at 78, and we were well on our way to an ozone exceedance. So identifying those days when there's enough northerly wind to push the air mass from Denver to Colorado Springs is critical, so we can get the word out through our advisory system. And I'll talk about that right now. This is what one of our advisories look like outside the Front Range region. You're all aware that we have an Action Day Alert program up in the Denver Front Range area. That's mandated because we are in non-attainment, and we are issuing emails for the Denver non-attainment area on a daily basis starting May 31st and going through August 31st. Outside the Front Range region, we rely on air quality health advisories, and there are definitely some benefits to air quality health advisories. Ozone Action Day alerts, we have to make a call at 3 o'clock every afternoon, yes or no, and when that call is made, it is final. The reason for that is some of the regulatory teeth that go along with the Action Day alerts. If we call an Action Day alert at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, that tells prescribed burners, which are doing a lot more work now on the Front Range and need to know what the conditions are going to be the next day. We let them know the day beforehand. And we've told them, we make a call the day beforehand. You have to check the forecast. If there's an Action Day alert in effect, you are not allowed to burn the following day. So it's very strict. We do have to have these alerts out before 4 p.m. every day, starting May 31st. Meanwhile, outside the Front Range, these air quality health advisories are much more flexible. We can issue these at any time of the day. We can have them run as long as needed. And we are flexible in who's covered by these advisories. Northern Front Range, the entire non-attainment area is covered. These we can fine tune. If there's a wildfire going on in Teller County that's only impacting a small portion of that county, the advisory is going to say that, okay? And it's the same kind of thing for these advisories for ozone. On a day where we have the flow coming on down from Denver, we can narrow it down to portions of the counties that we believe are going to be impacted by the higher ozone. So the affected area on here, very critical to take a look at that and see who is actually going to be seeing these levels of ozone. The advisory time, and of course the public health recommendations are crucial. That public health recommendation is going to change depending on the pollutant that we're talking about. Wildfire smoke is going to have a different message than ozone, just because they are two different things, and they have two different impacts on people depending on their location and what have you. Outlook on here, we're going to be try to be as precise as we possibly can to let people know exactly what's going to happen, not just when the air quality is going to be bad, but when we expect it to improve. And finally, on these advisories for ozone, we do have emission reduction requests. Okay, so we're trying to let people know, hey, if you can change these activities in the short term, you can decrease the amount of ozone that could be produced during this particular episode. Now I'll talk a little bit about the EnviroFlash emails. These are different, okay? So the advisories are going to come out, the only time they're going to come out is when we believe a pollutant is going to reach the unhealthy for sensitive groups category or worse. The EnviroFlash emails, which you can sign up through airnow.gov, the EPA's website, this is a daily email, okay? We populate this. Myself and the other two meteorologists here at the division, we populate this every day. Usually we do an update for it in the morning and then finalize it in the afternoon. And these are emailed at 2:30 every day. And it's a 24-hour forecast. So we will make changes to this forecast as conditions warrant, but it goes out at 2:30 and that's it. So that's going to be your forecast. So the question is, do I sign up for the advisories or do I sign up for this? These two products complement each other, okay? The beauty of these EnviroFlash emails, you don't have to get it on a daily basis. You can tell AirNow's website, hey, I only want an email when ozone is going to be moderate or higher. That's the only time I want that. I only want it when particulates are going to be moderate or higher. So you can customize that so you don't get email overload. But I think these two products really work well together. You're going to get your daily forecast, but also you're going to get that extra alert when we believe a pollutant is going to reach unhealthy for sensitive groups or worse. So here's those differences I kind of just explained to you. Key point here is myself and the other meteorologists, we populate all these. These are not computer generated forecasts. We are putting these in ourselves. So the air quality health advisories, when conditions warrant, we send them out. The EnviroFlash emails go out every day, 365 days a year at about 2:30 during the afternoon. The flexibility with the advisories, we can issue those at any time of the day. The air quality health advisories also have kind of that more customized language with the health messaging and the descriptive outlook. The EnviroFlash emails, you're just going to get that AQI forecast. That there's not going to be any additional text with those. And with the air quality health advisories, if you sign up on our website, the link is right there, and I will certainly share this presentation as a PDF to be distributed further. The advisories, if you sign up for those on our website, you pick the counties you want to be alerted for. If you only want Teller and El Paso, you can do that. You can get, advisories for the entire state if you want to. You can get Action Day alerts for the Denver metro area. There's choices there for you. And the EnviroFlash, I can't exactly remember if they ask for a zip code or a city, but if you want a Colorado Springs forecast, you can sign up just for that, and you will get that. And this very confusing slide is just showing you everywhere you can get our alerts, advisories, forecasts. Top left, colorado.gov/air quality. That's kind of the home base. Everything is stored there. But we also push all of our alerts to the National Weather Service. We have partnerships with every forecast office here in Colorado. There's 4 of them, and the Pueblo office covers Colorado Springs. So when we issue an advisory for the Pikes Peak region, we send it off to National Weather Service in Pueblo, and they have it posted on their website within the hour. And then, of course, social media. We do both Facebook and X, and we post all of our alerts there. And one other thing I wanted to pass along, I've spoken to this group in the past, but a new product that we do have now at the division is the Colorado Smoke Blog. This is really a great resource during wildfire season. Previously, we had a product called the Colorado Smoke Outlook that was embedded in our website. Basically, it was just some text. That's all there was to it. You could read, kind of where smoke was impacting the state. We decided to expand on that with the Colorado Smoke blog. So the blog really gives us a lot more options. We can embed video, we can put satellite imagery on there, we can link to some of our partner websites, be it NCWeb, US Forest Service, where we can get some really good information. And we also talk about wildfire smoke, but also prescribed fire smoke. We think that's really important for people to know, when there's prescribed burning ongoing and where you could be impacted by smoke there. So you can, the URL is there, and there's also a link on this to another new product we have called the Prescribed Fire Map. And again, we think this is a great product for the wildfire season. General public is standing outside, they see a big plume of smoke going up over the hillside. You can go to the Prescribed Fire Map and see if there's any scheduled prescribed fires ongoing and save yourself a call to 911. So we're hopeful that people can take advantage of that. We had some really good feedback on this as we launched it last summer, and we're hopeful to get even more so as we go through this summer. I'm going to wrap it up there. Thanks again for dealing with me and my technical glitches over here. I appreciate that, and more than happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Scott. We really appreciate that. It was a very good presentation. I definitely learned a lot. I'm going to open it up to the group first. Does anyone have questions for Scott? Go ahead, Dina.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. I appreciate it. Still can't get my camera to work, so we'll leave it off. But when you were giving your presentation, you were talking a lot about the difference between, I think, the air quality alerts and health advisories and then EnviroFlash. And you were talking about doing, some of these work better in the Front Range. And I think you were meaning up in the Denver Metro North Front Range non-attainment area and excluding the Pikes Peak Front Range. Is that correct?
Yeah, I apologize for that. I should have said Northern Front Range ozone non-attainment area. It should be noted that about a decade ago, when we issued an ozone action day alert, we included El Paso and Teller County. I think at some point in the past, I don't know if it was this group or another in the Pikes Peak region, wanted to be part of the ozone, the ozone action day alert program until they started getting, inundated with lots of alerts that didn't necessarily apply to them. One other thing that I think was a positive that came away from removing El Paso and Teller County from those alerts is that we were able to open up a bit more in the way of prescribed burning in this part of Colorado, because at one time in the past, if there was a burn going on in Teller or El Paso, it would be canceled on an ozone action day alert when really the air mass was not impacting that part of the, if you want to say central or southern Front Range. So sorry, that's a little tangent there, but yes, you're absolutely right, Dina. When I say Front Range, I do mean Northern Front Range with the alerts.
All right, thank you. And then secondly, and this is no surprise. I mean, I think previous presentations have kind of alluded to the same thing of high ozone days in the Pikes Peak area when it's not due to wildfires or stratospheric intrusions is because of, typically because, not in all cases, because of, pollution being pushed from the north down into over the Palmer Divide. Is this documented anywhere? I know the Pikes Peak area is very concerned about, any kind of reconsideration of the NACs and what values are being shown. And, they might be pulled into a non-attainment designation. And I think it'd be very interesting or very much needed to have, what you're presenting in, kind of documented. And so we can kind of use that when we're, talking to decision makers down here or decision makers up in the north, because I've seen folks in the non-attainment area, like trying to point to emissions from the Pikes Peak area as part of their problem. And I think it's actually the reverse. And so I think it would be really helpful to have your presentation in some kind of report. Is that available anywhere?
It's not. A lot of this, Dina, is just me flagging exceptional events every year and looking at the exceedances in the Pikes Peak area that I can't find wildfire smoke, or I can't find an intrusion. And a lot of times I will just pop that into a program we call Integrated Data Viewer, and I will look at a number of things, but the wind vectors is the most important. And it's just a very common thread whenever I look at those kind of events. So no, I have not formally documented or put a report together for any of that. I think they're so infrequent that you could probably pull a bunch of them together using that tool pretty rapidly.
Okay. And so that's something that the state would do or your office does. It's not something that's publicly available or folks in the Pikes Peak region could be doing themselves, right?
Well, I mean, the tools that we use here at the division are publicly available. Anybody can download Integrated Data Viewer and do the analysis themselves. The catalogs, the data is all public domain. So,
Okay.
Yeah, it's not something that we have here in the division and nobody else has access to.
Got it. All right. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Other questions? I have a question. Not sure if this is gonna come out right. So how much do the ozone forecasts take into account what's being the pollution that's being created in the Pikes Peak region, like the monitors in Colorado Springs, like what we're actually producing? Can you even get that with the data that you have?
It would be, challenging to kind of just narrow it down to that. What we can look at are days when the Denver metro area, there's no influence coming from Denver. When everything is locally produced. And I haven't looked that closely into it, but exceedances are extremely rare. On a typical day in this, and I'm kind of just back of the envelope, if it's all locally produced in the springs, it's usually 8-hour concentrations in the 60s. Don't quote me on that, but that's kind of what we see. If we, a lot of times during the summer and the springs, we will get the same kind of upslope that we see in the northern Front Range. Okay, so you have the Front Range is running north to south to the west of the I-25 corridor. The foothills warm faster than the plains next to them, so the air flows from the plains towards the mountains. What that means in Denver is the flow is going from the I-25 corridor and all those pollution sources towards the foothills, from Golden northward up through Boulder to Fort Collins, and we see much higher ozone. When the flow is going further south from Colorado Springs towards the foothills, even towards like a Manitou Springs monitor, in general, we're just not going to see ozone exceedances unless we get that contribution from somewhere else. I hope that answers the question. It's, I wish I could be more specific and precise, but I'm just going by, forecasting for this area for the past 12 or 13 years, and that's generally what we see.
Yeah, no, that's definitely helpful. Thank you. Does anyone have specific questions on the notification systems or how those work? I'd like to have a conversation with this group. Scott, you don't have to hang on if you got things going on, but just about how we help to get the word out around here and get people to receive those air quality alerts. I know there's been questions in other meetings that I've been in with CDPHE, the RAM group, about which one. I know you had that nice slide that showed the comparison of the two different sources, but there's been a few questions about, well, if we're doing public communications and trying to push people towards one of these resources, like which one do we point them to? Do you have any input on that? I mean, we could do both, but I think it's more confusing for the public that way.
So if you're looking to get people on a daily basis to decrease their emissions, then the EnviroFlash is going to give them a forecast every day. And perhaps if they see that yellow ozone, which they're going to see most days during the summer, maybe that's enough to get people to change some of their activities. The air quality health advisory is going to let you know when it's kind of taking that extra step up. So I still firmly believe that they work together, complementary products, and subscribing to both of them, I think, is most appropriate if you're trying to let people know what the daily ozone situation is and how they can protect their health and how they can reduce emissions, because those are included in the air quality health advisories.
Great. Okay, anyone else have questions? Well, Scott, I really appreciate it. This is a great presentation, and if you can share the slides with me, I'd love to have a copy, and I can share it out to the AQTC as well.
Sure will. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Scott. Okay, so we'll turn now. Everyone, if you could put your thinking caps on after you remember doing that in second grade. So we're gonna go back to that time where we just had, this great presentation from Scott. And I'd like the group to think about, like, what are your communication channels? What tools do you need to share this information with the public? How can you do that? And what can we provide to you to help get the word out about sign up for these EnviroFlash emails or sign up for the health advisory alerts? Any thoughts on that from the group? So I'll get us started. So we were talking with Katie, sorry to put you on the spot, Katie, about some other communications, and she had mentioned that in, I believe it was a community service building, there's a screen in the building that, like a TV, rotating TV screen where we could put a slide on there and potentially communicate this information, just like have maybe a big QR code that says, hey, sign up for these, pay attention to the ozone season. So that was one idea that we've already talked offline with Katie about. Does anyone have other thoughts like that? Any tools that we could provide to you? Ways that you can help get the message out?
So Angie, this is Dina. It might be just helpful to understand who, which of the organizations that are here today, who's already signed up for whether it's EnviroFlash or the CDPHE's health advisories.
Yeah, good point. Is anyone signed up already?
This is Kevin at Colorado Springs Utilities. Both Chris Welch and I get both of those.
That's great.
Go ahead, Katie.
Oh yeah, I was just raising my hand. I also am signed up for those notifications.
Ah, gotcha. Does anyone currently push out any information about this? I'm guessing maybe not, but figure I'll ask. Does anyone have ways of getting that information out? Not necessarily resharing the air quality alerts themselves, but more of helping the public to be aware of those resources and to also sign up for it. Okay.
If anyone would like to speak, Jared just got a message and said some people are unable to unmute. If you could raise your hand.
So thank you, Jared, for turning that back on for me. It's Victoria Chavez. For the Department of Public Works, I do not have the ability to get those messages out. They have to come from our Public Information Office. And my partner from Public Health is not on here. They are probably the most appropriate for El Paso County to get those messages out.
Yeah, thanks, Victoria. So we do have El Paso County Public Health on the AQTC. I guess they weren't able to make it today. So I can reach out to them directly about that.
Awesome, thanks.
Thank you. And as Cheryl's mentioned, if anyone else was trying to speak and couldn't, just please raise your hand.
Angie, this is Kevin again. I believe it's tomorrow that we have a meeting set up with our community outreach department. I think this is probably a good discussion to include in that conversation as well, because we should have some ability to put that in some of our printed materials or mailers or things like that.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, I'm having that meeting tomorrow and was planning to bring it up, but I totally forgot about your mailers, so that's a good idea. What about, I'm gonna put the military bases on the spot here. Do you all do any sharing of these air quality alerts resources or have any interest in doing it?
This is Bob Tomlinson. We do give out some information to our housing residents. And then also, with some of the regulations where now if we've got bad air quality days, we are not supposed to run our generators except in an emergency. So we're tracking those days to make sure that we're not running them other than in an emergency.
Are there resources that we could provide? I could potentially share the slides that we're making for Katie with everyone else. Does anyone have, what are the avenues that people have to share this information? Can we make you products to help us get the word out more is what I'm asking.
Hey Angie, this is Rick. I have to hop to another meeting, but one idea I had is maybe utilizing social media, because that might be more efficient with getting the word out to a large number of followers, whether it's the things like Facebook or Instagram or X, or there's other things, even like I don't know if this would be appropriate or not, but even like apps like forums, like Nextdoor and stuff like that, just something to think about. But thank you, and sorry I have to hop to another meeting.
No problem. Thanks, Rick. It is 2:00, so I don't need to keep anyone past time. We'll keep exploring these other ways that hopefully y'all can help me share these messages. I know we're looking at social media, so if you're looking for social media posts, we can make those for you. If you want a slide to put up in your buildings, we can make that. Just really looking for help to spread the word. So if you're able to, please let me know how we can help you do that. And we do have more things on the agenda, but we'll save that for the next meeting. So thank you, everyone. Let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Angie. Scott, thank you. That was excellent presentation.
Thanks, Scott.